Hi folks, Grandpa here. Well, we had so much fun and success experimenting with the Creeping Thyme ground cover project, I thought it'd be cool to work on another ground cover. This one is one of my favorites, Forget-Me-Nots. Check out these adorable baby blue flowers. They love semi-shade and damp environments, and as you can see, their baby blue color perfectly complements other plants, especially ornamentals like these azaleas. So, like we did with the Creeping Thyme experiments, let's try a few different ways to get these forget-me-nots to thrive in our gardens. If you're up for it, consider following along with me on this project. Last season I did some direct sowing of forget-me-nots in several areas of my yard. Some worked really well, and some failed, as you'll see. What you're looking at here is a successful result of direct sowing last spring. They grew hardy green plants all year long last season, like this one here, and remained evergreen throughout the winter. But as predicted and expected, they didn't bloom. I picked the right spots to sow the seeds, and as to the failures, heavy rains washed away some of the seeds. But we learned from our experiments, and this season I found a solution for that. The forget-me-nots are hardy across zones 3 to 8, but if you're watching in zones 3 through 6 or 7, you're in the sweet spot. Your more moderate temperatures are exactly what these flowers crave, making them a much more plant it and forget it project for you than they are for us down here in the south. Now, some folks call these annuals, and some seed houses list them as perennials. But in my research, I find they behave like a perfect biennial. They spend the first year building their roots, and the second year paying out those glorious blue dividends. Once that mission is complete, the original plant typically reaches the end of its life cycle. The one you're looking at here was sown last June 2025, just 10 months ago. But here's the secret. Because they drop such an abundance of seed, they effectively become a permanent, self-renewing part of your landscape. So let's try 3 different methods and see which one works best. I'm pretty sure all of these methods will work, but you can adjust them depending on your particular landscape, zone, timing, and so on. Here we're direct sowing our seeds. Be sure to remove all mulch and pine straw. Get down to the soil. And a note about pine straw, since we'll be counting on the forget-me-nots to drop seeds for the next season, we don't want to interfere with that process by surrounding the plants with pine straw. We want those seed to go directly to the soil. Again, I'm mixing these tiny seeds with sand to ensure a uniform broadcasting of seeds in these areas. I picked 2 spots that were unsuccessful last year, mainly because of the slope of the land and the runoff from the rain. This burlap cover is kept in place by Garden Staples. You can find this burlap on Amazon for about $40, and I'll put a link in the description below. Forget-me-nots thrive in relative shade and damp areas, so they're very different from the creeping thyme, which is not particular about soil and thrives in full sun and drier conditions. By the way, I have another follow-up on spreading the creeping thyme coming up in another video. We'll scratch the surface of the soil, then cover these tiny seeds with burlap. This is a process I just learned this year. This burlap will prevent those heavy rains from washing the seeds away before they have a chance to sprout. This is a problem I experienced in some spots with last year's crop. After the seeds have sprouted, and I'm estimating 8 to 12 days for germination, be sure to gently pull off the burlap so the seedlings don't grow through the burlap. Again, a damp environment and protection from a lot of direct sun is probably the best environment. And keep the burlap moist. I have irrigation in both of these areas, and here you can see the drip irrigation tubes running through, but I'll check them every day anyway. These 2 areas I selected get some sun and will stay damp. Our second and third methods will be potting them in these 3-inch pots, making plugs. I generally try to avoid seed trays because they require an additional step of potting up and then sometime later potting out in the garden. Maybe I'm lazy, but why not just start them with a little larger pot that will automatically give the roots time and room to develop without interruption. For my medium, I use a high porosity mix. A high porosity mix means the soil is airy. It's heavily amended with things like perlite or peat moss so that the water drains through quickly. But you can use your favorite mix. Just be sure it's very fine because the seeds are very tiny, and that it drains well and stays moist. For this experiment, we'll groom some seeds in the germination lab, a controlled environment with consistent temperature and humidity, consistent lighting, and fans to circulate the air. But here's something I'm anxious to try. We'll put some of these pots outside right from the beginning, in totes, in shady areas, starting them in something closer to a natural environment. We'll need to protect them from the heat, pay close attention to their moisture, and guard them against a heavy rainfall. But I'm thinking that this method, if successful, will yield hardier plants than those grown in the germination lab. So let's see what method works best. Remember, one method may work better for you than me, depending on your zone and weather and temperature patterns. And please remember that all these projects require patience. If there's one lesson I've learned now in my 3rd year of gardening, it's patience. There's an adage among gardeners that many new plantings will sleep, then creep, then leap over their first 3 years. And sure, you can go out to the garden shop and buy hundreds of dollars of flowers and ornamentals, but what fun is that? And they're subject to the same sleep, creep, and leap rule. They might give you a few lame flowers the first year, but they'll still have to go through the sleep, creep, and leap stages before you have a real, full, and resilient garden. So we're off to the races with our forget-me-nots. Consider getting some seeds and following along. On Grandpa Digs It, I promise to give you real-life videos that don't waste your time. These are not AI-generated videos. Sorry, as it is, this is my real voice, and I promise to share my successes with you as well as my setbacks. If there are any ideas you'd like me to try, please leave it in the comments below. And I ask you to please subscribe. It really does help my channel. And I'll see you next time on Grandpa Digs It.